For nearly 5 decades, the Boeing 747 was the queen of the Qantas fleet. But the Australian airline said goodbye to the jumbo jet this month. It was a move it had been planning for years, but the plane's retirement came early after the coronavirus pandemic crippled global travel.
It is the toughest period we've ever had with COVID-19. It is the biggest crisis the aviation industry has ever had.
British Airways has also ditched the aging gas guzzlers. And now, the plane's maker, Boeing, is following in its customers' wake, saying it's ending production in 2022. It made the decision as crisis after crisis has led to mounting losses. Boeing reported a larger than expected loss of $2.4 billion in the second quarter. Revenues fell 25% year-on-year to under $12 billion. That's as estimates show, airline industry losses will reach $84 billion this year. That red ink has resulted in cancellations of aircraft orders. Another piece of extra baggage for Boeing is its 737 MAX aircraft. Its best-selling plane was grounded in March last year after deadly crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia. But Boeing and the rest of the industry could see their fortunes turn in the coming months. That's because executives say airlines are better equipped to adapt to another COVID-19 surge.
If a second wave comes back, we hope that governments will take different measures because they will have the methodology, the equipment, the readiness, the plans, and if we could avoid complete lockdowns, that would be better for everybody.
To cut costs, Boeing is axing 10% of its 160,000 workers. It also expects the 737 MAX jets to be cleared to return to service in the third quarter, which it hopes will take the airspace the 747 is leaving behind. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to George Hamlin. He's the president of Hamlin Transportation Consulting in Stevens City, Virginia. Welcome to Money Talks. Now, we've heard their $2.4 billion quarterly loss for Boeing. It was already facing headwinds with the grounding of its entire 737 MAX fleet. What would you advise Boeing do in order to dig itself out of this huge conundrum?
Well, one thing was underway already, and that's get the MAX back in the air. And of course, they discussed that at some length on their investor call this morning. But this is in the hands of the regulators, and Boeing says it's doing all it can to make this happen.
Yes, and do you believe that we'll see the Boeing 737 MAX return to the skies anytime soon? We know they've already started testing the amended aircraft. How realistic is it that it'll return to the skies anytime soon?
When you say anytime soon, I think there's been discussion of possibly some airlines might be able to do something about this by fourth quarter or perhaps early first quarter of 2021. This seems realistic to me, but then you never know what bump in the road you may encounter on trying to get there.
Now, Boeing also announced that it'll stop producing its signature 747 jumbo jet. Was this a surprise to you?
No, the market has basically come down to only freighters, and UPS, United Parcel Service, the large freight carrier in the U.S., is essentially propping up this market now. It's been an amazing production run. It will have been produced for 53 years when production ends in 2022.
And of course, the 737 MAX was supposed to, I guess, take over in terms of its profitable aircraft and its signature workhorse. Do you think it'll regain that mantle if and when it returns to the skies?
Well, the 737 is the most successful commercial aviation program of all time to date, so that you've got a strong base going in, but certainly Boeing needs to execute very well and keep on executing very well to keep it at that level of prominence.
And of course, Boeing's major rival is the European plane maker Airbus. How would you compare the two companies in terms of their financial stability right now?
It's a difficult time for both. I think we've got a little more financial transparency in the U.S. corporate world. Boeing alluded to the fact that they actually see it. They see a potential path to positive cash flow in 2021. Now, they're certainly not guaranteeing it at this point, but no, when you're in the large capital equipment business and you deliver, some products that are, in the $100 million plus range, that if you are not able to deliver and collect the revenues off of those, this is a very difficult situation for both.
Now, as we know, CEO Dave Calhoun of Boeing had already announced a 10% cut to its 160,000 strong workforce. He also hinted that there could be further job cuts down the line when he delivered these results. Do you think Boeing can really afford to lose more staff?
Well, it's a question of losing, if you were not producing at the rates you were before, you don't need all the staff that you had. Boeing has got a tricky path to negotiate. On the other hand, there is somewhat of a silver lining, to use a U.S. expression, or at least a Western expression, that there are 450 MAXs that are already in storage. The production cost of those is now sunk. Yes, there are small costs due to storage and getting them back in service, but there's a potential bulge of revenues when these airplanes start to go into service, the delivery is taken by the airline, and Boeing gets paid.
Okay, George Hamlin from Hamlin Transportation Consulting. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for joining us on Money Talks.